What if I told you that the master plan for one of the world's fastest growing economies isn't just about spreadsheets and data, but also draws from a text that's 2,400 years old? Today, we're going to unpack India's national strategy, and it's a fascinating blueprint that connects ancient economic wisdom with the really high-stakes policies of the 21st century. Let's see just how deep this connection really goes.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a pretty wild claim. This is from an academic paper, and it argues that Adam Smith, the guy we all call the father of modern economics, might have actually lifted his big ideas from an ancient Indian text, the Arthashastra, written way back in the 4th century BCE. Now I know, that sounds like a crazy theory, so is there any actual evidence to back it up?
Well, take a look at this. When you put them side by side, it's pretty striking. On the left, you've got Kautilya's principles on taxation from over 2,000 years ago. And on the right, Adam Smith's famous rules from 1776. The ideas, certainty, proportion, economy, convenience, they're almost identical. This isn't just some fun history fact. Nope, this is the very thread connecting that ancient thinking to the modern blueprint we're diving into today.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the big picture, the nation's blueprint itself. Then we're going to zoom in on two huge pillars, investing in people and building a secure nation. And finally, we'll tackle the biggest question of all. How do you actually pay for this colossal ambition?
Every year, a country basically lays out its hopes and dreams in a bunch of spreadsheets. For India, that document is the Union Budget. You could almost call it a modern-day Arthashastra. It's the roadmap, plain and simple, showing exactly where the money comes from and, more importantly, where it's all going.
So, first things first, where does the money come from? Think of it this way. For every single rupee the government collects, the biggest chunk, 36%, comes from direct taxes. Income tax, corporate tax, that kind of thing. Another 18% comes from the goods and services tax, or GST. The rest is a mix of other taxes and, well, a pretty big slice of borrowed money. Yep, debt to help fund the whole operation.
And where does that rupee go? Well, the largest share, 21%, actually gets sent back to India's states to pay for their own local projects. Now get this, the next biggest chunk, 19%, goes right back out the door to pay the interest on all that debt we just talked about. What's left over gets divided up between defense, social programs, and a massive investment in infrastructure that we really need to take a closer look at. And when I say massive, I mean staggering. 11.11 trillion rupees. That's over 130 billion US dollars set aside just for capital expenditure. This is the building stuff money. We're talking roads, ports, digital networks, literally the physical backbone that the entire economy is built on.
But infrastructure is just one piece of the puzzle. At the end of the day, a nation's greatest asset is its people. And that's why this blueprint goes all in on a huge overhaul of the education system to get tens of millions of young Indians ready for the future. The master plan for all of this is something called the National Education Policy of 2020. The whole idea is to ditch the old-school memorize and repeat style of learning. Instead, they're pushing for a system that's all about flexibility, creativity, and the kind of skills that actually matter in the 21st century.
But a policy is just a piece of paper, right? How do you make it real? Well, one of the big moves is this PM Shri Schools program. They're taking over 14,500 existing schools and giving them a massive upgrade, basically turning them into model institutions that can show everyone else in the area how it's done. And it's not just the early years. The change in higher education is just as dramatic. Just look at the Indian Institutes of Technology, or IITs. These are globally famous engineering schools. And get this, in just over a decade, the number of them has jumped from 16 all the way up to 23. That's a huge boost to the country's tech talent pool. And this is happening across the board. The IAMs, the top business schools, they've grown from 13 to 21. And the IIMs, which are the top-tier medical institutes, have nearly tripled from just 7 to 20. This isn't random. It's a clear, coordinated push to scale up high-quality education in every single field.
Okay, so Pillar 1 is investing in people. Got it. Pillar 2 is all about national security, but it comes with a really interesting twist, a major strategic pivot towards self-reliance in defense. And this is a complete 180 from how things used to be. For decades, India was one of the world's biggest buyers of military hardware. Now the whole game is about Make in India. The goal is to completely flip the script from a major importer to a major manufacturer, and maybe even an exporter of defense tech.
And they are not messing around. The numbers here are incredibly ambitious.
Domestic defense production last year was about 1.27 lakh crore rupees. The target for 2028-29? More than double that. Hitting that number is going to require an aggressive growth rate of nearly 19% every single year.
But modernizing a military isn't just about new equipment, it's also about the people. The Agnipath scheme is a huge structural reform. Basically, it recruits soldiers for a 4-year tour. After that, up to a quarter of them can join the permanent ranks. The rest leave with a financial package, but, and this is key, no lifelong pension. The idea is to create a younger, more agile force while also getting a handle on those massive long-term pension costs.
Which brings us to the trillion-rupee question. World-class schools, a self-reliant military, all this stuff costs a ton of money. So how on earth does India plan to pay for it all?
Well, here's the core challenge. The data shows that out of all the people who have a tax ID number, only about 19% of them actually file their returns. Just think about that for a second. Widening this tax base and getting more people to pay their fair share isn't just important, it's absolutely critical. The whole plan depends on it.
And the government has been cracking down hard. Recent campaigns going after offshore tax evasion have led to the disclosure of over 29,000 crore rupees in hidden foreign assets. It's a huge number, and it shows you both the scale of the problem and that enforcement can really work.
But you can't just rely on enforcement alone. That's why policymakers are getting really interested in this concept called tax morale. It's the idea that people's willingness to pay taxes isn't just about being afraid of getting caught. It's about trust in the government, a sense of fairness, and feeling like it's your civic duty.
So to improve this tax morale, they're experimenting with behavioral science. This is the kind of standard, super impersonal tax reminder that most people are used to getting. It's functional, sure, but it's not exactly inspiring, is it?
But now, check out this totally different approach that researchers are testing. This email reminder includes a picture of Mahatma Gandhi, a powerful symbol of honesty and integrity in India, with that famous caption. It's what they call a behavioral nudge. It's an attempt to appeal to your conscience and social norms, not just your wallet.
And that brings us right back full circle. From the timeless principles of Kautilya to behavioral nudges inspired by Gandhi, India is drawing on both its ancient past and modern science to build its future. The blueprint is ambitious, the vision is crystal clear, but the ultimate question remains, can this grand plan overcome the monumental challenges of actually getting it all done? Now that's the story to watch.